All right, continuing on with Ned Kelley, who's born in 1854 or 1855, exact year unknown, sentenced to death in 1880. He gained folk legend status as a symbol of anti-establishment, fighting corrupt British colonists of the time. He was born to a poor family. His father was a former Irish convict who landed in Australia because of being sent there to the penal colony. And his mother had moved there voluntarily, was not a former convict. And they made money. It was believed that they made money by stealing horses and cattle and reselling them. That is, I guess it kind of depends on the account that you look at. Of course, the accounts from the police at the time say they were thieves. However, the Kelley family does not necessarily admit to that, which I'll get a little more into that part later. His first arrest was at the age of 14 for allegedly assaulting a man. A year later, he was arrested again for suspicion of aiding a known bushranger. Bushranger, kind of an Australian equivalent to outlaw that's known for hiding out in the wild, in the bush. And both of these charges were dropped. He was arrested 2 more times over the next couple of years for assault, or one was for receiving a stolen horse. So everything was pitted against him and his family from the start. His brothers were also regularly arrested for various crimes or supposedly committing various crimes. Again, something I will delve into a little bit more down the road as to whether or not these incidents happened or happened in the way that the police led everyone to believe that they happened. The first major incident that turned Ned Kelley and his brother and a couple of their friends into what led the Kelley gang to really get started was known as the Fitzpatrick incident. Fitzpatrick was an officer that went to the Kelley home to arrest his older brother, Dan Kelley, supposedly for theft. And the officer claims that he was shot by Ned in the wrist. However, the accounts of the Kelley family are quite different. Ned says that he wasn't even there. Dan was there, and they say that Fitzpatrick actually showed up at their house drunk. He tried to sexually assault one of their sisters, and so it kind of sounds more like Dan stepped in to protect his sister from this cop assaulting him. Fitzpatrick pulls out a gun. He tries to wrestle the gun away from him. That's probably where he injured his wrist and wasn't shot in the wrist. And obviously it wasn't done by Ned because he was not even present. He wasn't even in the same town at the time. And after these events, obviously Dan fled. Ned met up with him and they were fleeing the police. Their mother, Ellen, ended up getting arrested for aiding and abetting the attempted murder of a police officer. Down the line, 4 officers went out hunting for Dan and Ned, who at this point were joined by 2 of their friends, Joe Byrne and Steve Hart. These 4 collectively becoming known as the Ned Kelley gang. At this point, the Ned Kelley gang, they were moving to start a whiskey distillery as a way to try to raise money so that way they could apply for an appeal on their mother's sentence to get her out of jail. As they were moving, they encountered these officers. Of course, a shootout ultimately occurred between these officers and the Kelley gang. 3 officers ended up getting shot and killed. 1 was able to get away and fled and reported this all back to the police. Once this occurred, they were officially labeled as outlaws and therefore making it legal for them to be shot on sight. At this point, there wasn't really anything else that they can do. They resorted to bank robberies to make money. every bank robbery that they did, the reward for catching them dead or alive just increased exponentially. Finally, at one robbery, a notable one that happened in Gerald Dairy, and forgive me if I mispronounced that, anyone that's from Australia that is hanging out. At this robbery, Ned gave what is actually a very long letter to one of the clerks at the bank and demanded that it be published. This clerk ended up turning it over to the police. It was not published until many years after his death. You can actually, I believe it was on the Australia's National Museum website. You can actually find the full transcript. It is a fascinating read and it is very enlightening. In this letter, he describes the events of his life, the times that he was arrested when he was 14, 15, 16, as well as the events with Fitzpatrick, the shootout that occurred between his gang and the 4 other officers. And in his accounting of all these incidents, it's a lot of false, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. False accusations that were made against him, things that were blown out of proportion by the police officers to villainize them even more so to the public. And in the last third of it, it is a very in-depth description of how corrupt the politics are and specifically the police officers, and recalling all the info. There was a lot of info in that letter. It's a great read. The corruption of the police officers, how the government is actively against those that are poor, and how the laws do not apply to the police officers and therefore protect them and don't protect the people as a result. It's a very enlightening letter that was written. And yeah, again, this unfortunately was not published until well after his death, but it is now public record and publicly available. And this letter explains why he got to the place that he was and his actions, and justifies justifies their actions in all of these crimes and supposedly committed crimes. Their final shootout happened in 1880. They were organizing an attack on the Victorian police in Glenrowan. They held town residents hostage in a hotel, and then they forced some local workers to destroy the train line, as they knew that more Victorian officers were going to be coming in on the train. This did not work, unfortunately, and one hostage who was allowed to leave, if I remember correctly, he was a teacher. They allowed him to leave because he had a wife and small children that he needed to get back to. So there was a lot of moments like that where there was some humanity and a very gentlemanly approach to their crime. Well, of course, this hostage went on and told the train driver, warned him so that way he wouldn't drive the train in on the broken rails, and the police officers were still able to find a way in to the town. And the gang all had constructed armor out of plow parts, and it's looking at the armor, it weighed approximately 90 pounds, so they couldn't exactly run fast, but it definitely would shield them from mass gunfire, which they were going to need.
There's a photo of one of the suits of armor, and all I can really describe it as is medieval Dalek.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is. It's like, you see someone coming at you with that, it's going to be a bit jarring.
It's like Iron Man in the cave.
Yeah,
basically.
it's Iron Man.
The box of scraps.
Yeah,
Definitely made out of farm equipment.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
it is as jank as it gets.
Yes.
John Deere on the car.
When the police arrived, the grand shootout occurred. Unfortunately, everyone in Ned Kelley's gang did die, with the exception of Ned Kelley. He was caught because he was shot and injured horribly in areas where his armor did not cover his legs and I believe his arms. He was tried and sentenced to death by hanging. His last words reportedly were, well, I suppose it has come to this. Or one other reporter quoted him as saying, such is life.
So poetic.
During his outlaw status, he did gain quite a bit of support from the public, viewed as a man standing up for the rights of the common man and against government and police corruption, which, again, reading the Geraldary letter, you can absolutely see that. Even if no one was able to read it, they could see what was going on and sympathized with Ned Kelley and his brother and their two friends. Since then, he has become the subject of books, films, paintings, poems, including in 1970, there was a biopic starring Mick Jagger as Ned Kelley.
That's not the one I saw.
Well, it's got
a different one.
It's got 5 out of 10 stars on IMDb, so it's great.
I would kill to see him in that suit.
Strut.
Just
Yeah.
strutting. That suit weighs more than Mick Jagger.
Yes. At that time, as much cocaine was in his diet, probably. And also, his suit of armor is on display at the State Library of Victoria. Originally, the armor pieces that they had, they thought belonged to one of the other members of the gang, but it was later on confirmed that it actually was Ned Kelley's armor. That's what I have on Ned
He
Kelley.
wrote Ned on the collar.
Yeah.
Mine. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's Ned Kelley.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a fun one. The Iron Man suit. I think without the Iron Man suit, it's a little
That's
less fun
kind
at
of
the end.
that's kind of awesome.
It is kind of awesome.
Yeah. And the letter was just a great end to my research listening to that, especially the last third of it. I found a online transcript that initially for it, and the last third of it when he is going off some of the things that he calls the police force of Victoria, Australia, is great insults that are spewing out from him.
It's called qualified immunity.
If I can't break the law, then how do you expect me to perform the law?